Hello, this is Group Four's presentation of the Triple Connection. It's our team. So first we have Logan, who's our operations supply chain, Melody, who's our marketing and sales, Lexi is sustainability, George is our chief executive officer. That's why he's sitting at the head of the table. And I'm Tommy. I did our purchasing. So the way that we took on this challenge is our main strategic focus was people, focusing on human rights, the violation, lowering that, lowering child labor, and concentrating on worker safety. We also wanted to focus on prosperity, which was implementing strategies for farmer yield, farmer income, and soil quality. And as the simulation went along, we found out that we also wanted to include strategies for our environment and planet. So we monitored our water usage, waste, and our CO2 emissions. So how we're going to present this today is first we're going to talk about our purchasing and the areas in that. Then we're going to move to our marketing and sales and how we accomplish that part of our business. Then we'll move into the operations and supply chain and all the actions we took there. And then we'll move into our sustainability, which will talk about everything that we did to help meet our goals. And finally, we'll wrap it all together, talking about our impact and our ROI and our true ROI. So first, we're going to start in purchasing. So in our purchasing, we were looking at purchasing materials for the cartons, for our PET, which is the plastic bottles. We were also looking at milk, which is in all of our products. And then we were having to deal with our sugar, which is in every beverage that's not diet. And then, of course, our sweetener, which is in every diet beverage. So our strategy there for our purchasing was to look at the distance. So just like we learned in class, where a lot of companies are now nearshoring, we're looking to buy from distributors that are close. This also helped with fewer emissions. And then we also looked at those actual companies and how their emissions were and if it helped with the planet. We also were looking to diversify our supply chain and make sure that we incorporated as many minority owners as we could. And then also the minimal amount of non-virgin materials, so for recycling and sustainability. And then the biodegradable products. So this just goes back to reducing waste and creating sustainable product, and also the water usage, just to help our environmental impact. So by focusing on people and prosperity, our processors became our main focus. So with the processors, which are listed here, we picked every one of them up as quickly as we could, so that way we could help with all of their interventions and to help get them financially stable as possible. We also had to buy from the spot market when we started. The problem with it is there's no transparency. It's also there's high child labor usage and human rights violations. So our big goal was to work on processor premiums and create long-term contracts with those processors in order to separate our need for the spot market. So as we went through the process, we were actually purchasing 1.5 million liters of cacao from the spot market. And then at the end, we almost got to zero, but we were still purchasing about 4,200. So as you can see, the red line here shows our trend all the way where we continuously went to improve as we created or brought in more suppliers and helped them out. So from there, we're going to move to marketing and sales.
Our first action item was the triple P guarantees. We guaranteed planet, people, and prosperity as soon as we made that achievement, especially with compliant. We were in compliant up to our last round. We labeled products as soon as possible. We decided to label products to increase our sales, to put towards our farmer interventions to help make ambassador in people and prosperity. We were very conscious about avoiding greenwashing. Our first round, we were very optimistic and we greenwashed our consumers, and that probably led to our negative ROI. So we were very conscious and we wouldn't guarantee anything until we met it the round before, which hurt us in our last round because we were ambassador on all of 3 categories, but we decided to only guarantee ambassador on 2. And then our first round, we decided to take a risk with EV technology and implement it on all of our consumers. And we didn't see how it was negatively impacting any of our ROI. So we continued to do it because it was helping our carbon emissions with our planet.
So for operation and supply chain, we also had 4 major areas of our strategy we wanted to focus on. The first in that was to focus on our restock windows. That was to mainly help both in our planet and in our overall ROI performance. We had some major issues up front with milk, especially in the sake that it would continuously have waste. So as we progressed with each round, we eventually got down to a 0.1 restock window for milk, which fully eliminated waste and got us to that champion status that we were looking for. Our next area was worker safety. As Tommy mentioned, we really wanted to focus on people initially when we were setting up the simulation. So we, on the outset, made the easy decision to go ahead and enable safety training for our workers. And throughout the rest of the simulation, we also worked to get our inbound and outbound warehouses to about 80% utilization. The reason for that was that utilization would help us stay under the need for the overflow warehouse, and it would also keep our worker safety as high as possible with low safety incidents. The next area we looked into was component inspections. We realized we had to make that decision every time that we got a new supplier, so we had to implement inspections on all of our goods. That increased safety and also eliminated waste. And the final category we really looked at was getting more focus on efficiency. And so the biggest gain we were able to do with that was implementing both the inflated PET bottles and having a more efficient bottling line. Continuing on from there, we essentially had, as I mentioned, our initial strategy that was focused on people. So the other decision we made in that area was to pool the workforce. And we also didn't want as much as we could to let anybody go. But after pooling the workforce and getting our utilization up to 80%, we did realize that our inbound warehouse was operating too efficient. So we did end up letting one worker go in the final round. The next one that I mentioned was the eliminating of wastes in our components. And so as our strategy evolved to include planet in addition to people and prosperity, we were able to eliminate that waste, especially on milk, as I mentioned. And then tying it together with the more efficient bottling line, that significantly was a reduction for our inbound warehouse. And that is what ended up leading to us having to get rid of one employee. And then finally, as I mentioned before, lowering the restock window for milk helped to get rid of waste and ultimately helped not just our ROI, but our true ROI as well. And it was one of the best decisions that we ended up making, even if it took us all the way up until round 5. I'd hand it over to Lexi.
Awesome. Thank you, Logan. So next we're going to be talking about sustainability. So in the course of sustainability, we took 3 core actions, the first being intervention selection. We kind of came in hot, thinking that we're going to invest in as many farms as possible. And really with our interventions, we focused on the most popular interventions. So we did not choose an intervention if even 5% would decline in, and especially if anybody would leave. So we really focused initially on interventions that were the most popular. But then as we continued along in the process, we decided to focus more on interventions that were maybe a little bit more costly, but would ultimately allow us the best soil quality or highest yield. So we started to be a little bit more picky on what we were selecting, even if we did lose some farmers in the process. Next, we focused on being really focused on bringing interventions over and over again. So having a continual process where if we invested in a intervention in the first round, we try to reinvest in that for every single round. And this was really, something that I think helped grow our true ROI, helped, reinvest in our people, because every single round we usually would get additional benefits. But towards the end, we started focusing on maybe just reinvesting in farms that had the highest yield or farms with the most, farmers at play, rather than just always reinvesting in everything for every single farm. And then finally, we really focused on our partnership with purchasing. Initially, we didn't really understand maybe how premiums worked with the intervention acceptance rate or the farmer salary, but we started to get a lot more strategic with that. And I think a big part to play in that was data collection. So Tommy did a great job collecting a lot of data and analyzing it. And I think even that goes to a lot of the readings that we had throughout class, just how important data collection and data analyzing is when making core decisions. And so we did a lot of playing with increasing premiums, and then eventually we would decrease premiums. And there's a lot of different strategic decisions at play when deciding between the two. And then with the sustainability challenges and learnings, so like I just mentioned, premium price selection, understanding why and when to increase or decrease premiums. So if we were focusing on farmer salary, obviously increasing premiums helped, acceptance rate, increasing premiums helped, but there were definitely times where we had to decrease that premium just to help us with, our budgeting or any other limitations that we had there. Additionally, as marketing mentioned, we did get in a little bit of trouble for greenwashing initially. We kind of overshot ourselves thinking that, oh, hey, we made all of these interventions that were highly accepted. We're going to, be totally okay with our customers. But then we started to take a lot more of a conservative approach heading into the next several rounds. And we really only selected prosperity or ambassador or whatever level it was if we were 100% sure that we would get there at the end. Additionally, we also looked into investing in other green initiatives. So we did a lot of trial and error with this. We invested in, for example, solar panels, and then decided not to. We invested in other green initiatives, stuck with that. Carbon credits, we decreased those throughout the different rounds, just kind of depending on budget and if we saw the kind of results that we were hoping for in the true ROI. And then finally, something that was tough for us was when did it let farmers go? So as I mentioned earlier, selecting interventions just based on popularity was maybe not the most strategic move at the beginning, but as we started to figure out that just declining didn't mean that the farmers were leaving, we started to select more and more interventions that even if the farmers would leave or decline, we still move forward with that to impact our true ROI, and then focus less on the majority rule.
Thank you, Lexi, for ending with that. Now we're going to talk about the impact of the ROI and TROI. So I'm going to break this section up into many categories. The first thing is we're going to look at the trends that we all focused on, strategies we all came up with, as well as our approach, lessons we've learned, projected growth, and how we did as a team overall. Some of the trends that we saw was that in the beginning, we did have an oopsie, as Lexi mentioned before. From there, we have seen positive growth that kept most of the same suppliers because the contracts that held the same days for supplies needed to adjust. And so every week when we met together, there was different time adjustments that we had to look at so our factory didn't have a lot of waste. From there, the strategies we used was to mainly focus on customers to raise the ROI as well as the TROI. We wanted to also focus on farmer income to help increase the ROI as well. We extended most of the contract times, cut inventory costs, and we took risks. And then our approach, thanks to Mr. Tommy, we have used an Excel sheet to calculate different times and contracts that wouldn't hurt the ROI and TROI in order to have a positive growth impact. We removed a few contracts in order to save some money, such as the solar panel. We improved farmers' income, focused on the triple Ps, and an example with that is the Costco incident where they had the child incident. They didn't focus on the triple Ps as much as we did, and they had a bad impact on their sustainability with the child labor laws as they had children working under the age of 14. The lessons we have learned are being a team player is vital for growth. Communication is key. We learned how to prevent the bullwhip effect because suppliers can drop any moment and that would just increase and make a bullwhip snowball, and negotiate. And the projected growth that we saw since we dove into each of the contract negotiations was we saw previous results from the week before and used calculations again from the Excel sheet and had to use that in order to see what type of growth we would have as an overall company. And I think how we did as a team, we did very well. We got along. We met every week. Everyone was flexible. This is one of the best teams I've ever worked with. And I think when things are just always up in the air, everyone is able to accommodate to everyone. So for the trends again, we ended with a TROI of 29% and an ROI of 16.7%. And the overall outcome was that we ended up an ambassador level for most of the categories and champion for 5 levels as well. And this is, I think, one of the best outcomes that we could have had in the simulation. Thank you.